Are you saying that the globalists are working in cahoots with the Chinese?
They're attempting to use China to bring about their own agenda, and then the question is whether they can control China the way they believe they can. They think that they can use China, but the question is whether China is going to be rather a petulant and difficult partner in their project, and whether that will in fact actually backfire on these globalists in the end. Because China does have globalist ambitions to have a global socialist world order. Yeah.
Who are the globalists that you feel are the threat to American autonomy and liberty?
Well, I mean, there's minions all over the place, and they operate out of the World Economic Forum and the UN and other globalist organizations, but they also include these corporations that have been rolled into this stakeholder capitalism regime that was spawned ideologically, at least by Klaus Schwab, but it's got major proponents and major asset managers and banks, the World Bank, IMF, all these organizations have been pushing a globalist agenda. The UN certainly has been trying to get rid of national sovereignty, and so that's the object of these globalists, is to eliminate national sovereignty and create this kind of a global order. They see this national sovereignty as an impediment to their objectives, and they use climate change as a pretext to bring this about, because they say that since climate change supposedly affects everybody, then the solution has to be global. Therefore, that means everybody must participate. That is why it's totalitarian.
But to what extent are the Chinese companies adhering to these climate standards?
Yeah, they're not so far. In fact, they're bamboozling the West with their supposed compliance with ESG and other, environmental, social, and governance measures, but they are not compliant at all. Now, China is beginning to introduce legislation that would make a uniform standard of ESG reporting, but right now China is not participating in this global environmentalist frenzy.
Themselves?
Yeah, they're not. They are producing more and more coal plants. I mean, they put up record coal plants like one a day at this point. Yeah, they're putting up coal plants almost at a rate of one a day.
Polluting.
Yes, well, so-called polluting. I don't believe in greenhouse gas effect. I don't believe it's real. I think this is complete fiction, and it's a fabrication of this the UN and their IPP, International Panel on Climate Change, the IPCC. It's crap. But, yeah, I mean, they're moving ahead while we curtail. And they do gain to benefit from the renewables, because a lot of the minerals that are necessary for renewables and for EVs, for example, China has a great deal of control over.
What was it like for you in that academic environment?
Well, when I was at NYU, I was still a Marxist. So it wasn't until the social justice woke mob came after me for making a few remarks that they didn't like that I completely eschewed and completely reoriented my entire worldview and philosophical outlook from communist to libertarian free market thinker. Yeah, and freedom fighter.
Because what's the environment like within, use NYU as the example, but most of academia today?
Oh, it's a complete brainwashing mill in which there's this total ideological conformity and homogeneity, and there's no way to stand outside of it. If you do, you're ruined instantly. So it's very narrow banding of thought. There's a curtailment of free speech and free inquiry. It's terrible. Yeah.
Yeah, but isn't the campus supposed to be for the exchange of?
I mean, the university system ideally is a place for open and free inquiry, and freedom of speech and academic freedom, but it is anything but that right now. In fact, it is It's completely abandoned its mission of free and open inquiry and intellectual curiosity and exploration. So instead, it is now like an ideological state apparatus, producing particular ideological subjects, and I mean that in both senses, topics and people under their sway. So the university system is now nothing more than it was in the Soviet Union under the Soviets when they took over, and they made sure that everybody towed the line. They got rid of any beliefs that were contrary to the state. And similarly, like they got rid of, for example, with Lysenkoism, they got rid of Mendelian genetics and Darwinian evolution, and they made it a state party line that you had to toe. And so they eliminated all other points of view. That's what's happening here.
In New York, you have the Columbia School of Journalism.
Yeah.
And supposedly, they set the standard. You have Society for Professional Journalists, and most news is made either from New York City or Washington, D.C. What's the climate like for ideas that are contrary to the Democrat Party line in New York and among the journalist community?
There's no platform for it, and when if it is spoken, it spells the ruination of the speaker. And so, journalism is completely fallen in line with this whole regime of censorship and propaganda and ideological homogeneity. And there's no investigative reporting that would go against the narratives of the regime, including the climate change regime, the COVID regime, the state propaganda about Ukraine. And you name it, any number of regime narratives are not allowed to be contradicted.
In the Frankfurt School, is that where the origination of the Long March through the institutions emerged?
Well, actually, that's part of it, but there was another wave after the Frankfurt School. There was the wave that came from France and the Maoist movement. The postmodernists were all Maoists. And they wanted to effect a cultural revolution like in China. They adopted the Maoist cultural revolutionary ideals, and they spread it throughout the West. And so that was another wave that's really essential to understanding. We're really under a Maoist cultural siege, under a Maoist type cultural revolution.
So how is the Chinese Communist Party marching through the institutions that affect the U.S. and Western Europe?
I think we're doing it. I think this is internal. Their enemy is within.
Chinese or
No, the elites in this country are already. They don't need to be infiltrated by communists. They already are. So I mean, the elites are leftists. The ruling ideology in this country is leftism, and everything that they do is under that aegis. So we don't need to have infiltrators from China take over. We're already doing it. They're doing it themselves.
how did it work out this way? How did it get this way?
Well, I think that's a long, big question, but
Did they only hire people who were
yes, that was part of it. I mean, first of all, there's a couple of reasons. If you're asking me why do university people end up as like Marxists and so forth, first of all, a lot of the people that are attracted to university-type jobs are rent seekers who don't want to work in the free market. They don't want free market competition. They want a sinecure of some sort where they're not competing. So that makes them statists to begin with. Then you reproduce the leftism within the university, in greater and greater extents. It's like an exponential takeoff where you have no other types of perspectives. You get rid of all other perspectives and you keep reproducing the same perspective within the ranks. And then before you know it, you have almost 100% compliance. So, so they're statists to begin with, and then they're leftists. They don't like the free market largely, and they therefore are attracted to university jobs. And then once they're there, they reproduce their kind.
But you showed examples of Chinese, what seem to be agents within the.
Yes. But I think those people are being enrolled by the Western all elites. They're bringing them into the fold. Those people aren't infiltrators into these Western globalist organizations. The Western globalists are actually enrolling those people. They're effectively enlisting them in the project. Yeah.
But are they essentially sabotaging for the American system for a Chinese system?
Yes, yeah, definitely. They want to replace they look at China as the model for the West. China is the model they want to bring about here. As I called it, as I mentioned, socialism with Chinese characteristics. That is a for-profit oligarchs, monopolists on top, and actually existing socialism for the folks on the ground, and nothing in between.
This notion of equity.
Equity is just about fairness for those who don't have anything. Equity is basically everyone is equal except for the people that don't need equality. That's the oligarchs that control all the resources. So equity is for thee, but not for me.
So what would happen to the middle class in the United States, or upper middle class?
Well, they're eroding it already. The object is to eliminate the middle class completely. The middle class stands as the hugest impediment to the globalist agenda of total control over resources, and they also think that the useless eaters, is exactly how they refer to us, are a danger to the planet. I don't know if they actually believe this or they just use that as an excuse for trying to control our behavior. Whether they believe it, it's hard to know what people actually believe. But I would think they probably do believe it on some level because they have to sleep at night, so they have to believe they're doing good while they're actually enacting what I consider to be evil.
Does that also include the Chinese social credit score?
Well, they want to bring that here, for sure. The Chinese social credit score would be part of the digital identity, and it'll be connected to the central bank digital currencies. And there's already
Healthcare.
Healthcare, vaccine status, everything would be part of it. Yeah.
People's ability to travel, go by train, spend money.
Curtailed greatly. They want to bring about 15-minute cities where you can't leave beyond the 15-minute periphery. Anything you've got to be able to reach within 15 minutes by bicycle or foot. So they want to corral everybody into these 15-minute cities.
And to pass that border, you need special.
Probably your social credit score could preclude you going beyond a certain periphery. That's how it is in China.
It is that way.
Yes.
And people's social media comments. What impact?
All that could be figured into your social credit score. There's no question about it that your political profile will be part of this.
Facial recognition like they have in China?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That's definitely going to be part of it.
To track where people go, who they meet?
Where they are, where they go, what they say, everything. Yeah.
Is this something that China needs to be in America, or have they...
It's kind of like China's an import. The state of China is like an import into the West.
Like a French fashion.
Yes, that's right. They're importing China to the to the West.
Communism, essentially.
Yes, this style, as I talked about it, though, socialism with Chinese characteristics. Right. There will still be these oligarchs with monopoly control of the economy, and they'll still have for-profit production, but they'll eliminate the middle class. That's the object.
Neighbors turning in neighbors for unpatriotic...
and AI turning in neighbors, too. Yeah.
Sorry?
AI turning in neighbors.
How would AI know?
AI will be patrolling people, and even could be, there's the possibility with brain cloud interfaces that your brain will be on the cloud all the time, so it's possible that they actually could read your mind.
Surveilling phone calls?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's already happening.
You think it's happening now?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Cell phone calls?
Yes. The NSA is doing that already. That's well known.
Facebook monitoring WhatsApp and
already. The FBI has admitted as much. They're monitoring Facebook and all other social media. And they're even censoring. They're telling these. We saw with the Twitter files how much they intervened with Twitter and shut down certain narratives, certain counter narratives, certain statements and people disappeared them off the site, stuff like that. So the state has been already using those so-called private enterprises as state apparatuses.
Elections?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to go there, but I think it's possible that the elections have been, the elections are just, they're a sham at this point. They're a sham. So I don't know there's no stake to be put in, like what happens with these elections.
Even though Mike Lindell and the Fox Dominion cases have not come up with evidence of a turn in the national election.
Yeah, I think that it's kind of hard to prove all these things, and I'm not talking strictly through Dominion means by Dominion, but there were so many other means by which this was done: ballot stuffing and harvesting and all this kind of stuff, and it's just a whole lot of shenanigans. It's almost beneath contempt. I don't, so.
What can the public do at this stage? Can they trust the RNC to clean things up?
I think the RNC doesn't have a significant enough power structure separate from the Democratic Uniparty, the Democratic-run Uniparty. Yeah, the Democrats run the Uniparty system, and the Republicans are just either on board, or else they're in a minority. So they don't have enough power to overcome this. And all the agencies of the state are under the same dominion of the Democratic-run Uniparty. The FBI, the CIA, this IRS, we saw that. So all of these alphabet agencies were also under it.
Are people at risk at looking at certain websites? Will the IRS be?
Definitely. You got to be careful what you. Well, I don't say you got to be careful. You should be cognizant of the fact that your web surfing is already well known and stored by Google and then submitted necessarily if asked to the NSA. So yes, all that can be done. It can be tracked. Sure, and it probably is being. Sure.